Hello, everyone. This is Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist, and welcome back to the Mad Science Lab podcast. Today, we are continuing on with the My Tiers series, and here to talk a little rookie quarterback is Andrew Debbink.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Aaron.
I struggle with names. I'm the worst at it. You can always tell when I've done either too many podcasts in one day or I've come straight from work. I can't get my own name right half the time, let alone somebody else's. The other day, you could just tell I screwed up my name and then I had to pause because I forgot the name of my own show. Some days I do too many of these, but thank you for joining me, Andrew.
Yeah, no, not a problem. And, I would have responded to anything you called my last name. So, but you got pretty good. So appreciate it.
I have that all the time. People tag me or respond to me and I'm like, that's not my name, but thanks anyways. I guess there's a Mad Scientist FF and he's Damien. So half the time people call me Damien. And then I get Andrew a lot. I get Dennis because it's St. Dennis. I get all, I don't even care half the time. People will tweet me and then I'll reply and they're like, oh, I'm sorry I got your name wrong. I'm like, I don't even care. I knew who you were talking to. Doesn't matter. You want to take a second here? Tell everyone where they can find your work.
Yeah, for sure. So on Twitter, I'm at AuctionAndrewFF, focusing mostly on auction strategy, content, and things like that. Posting on different articles and things on yards per fantasy, so you can check out my work on that website. Culminating in an auction roadmap that will be coming out in the next month or so here. Kind of going through all different kinds of auction format, content, strategy, different things there. But yards per and on Twitter are the best spots.
That's one I definitely have to get more into is the auction. I think I've only done one. I had one sec. Sorry. Right when I start podcasting, what happens? My dog is outside barking at the dog next door. And I'm just wondering to make sure my dog's small, but attacks everything. So I'm just making sure my dog's not being killed by the neighbor's dog. Anyways, what I was saying was I tried to do a couple of the auction drafts last year, but doing a lot like 2-minute timers or whatever, or minute timers, the way to go. But I couldn't get enough people who could all draft on the same night. We did a whole bunch where we tried to do slow auction drafts. Good Lord, does that not work?
Yeah. I'm always a big fan of if you can get everybody in the same room. I mean, I think that's the best of the best experience. But the slow timer can be absolutely grueling on the nerves to see if your bid stands up. So,
that's one thing I'd like to get into this year, but it just doesn't seem to ever pan out. You got to really have a group of guys. Like I said, it works best with friends and family nearby or coworkers, and I can never get them to do it. I tried to do it when our work Dynasty League started up. I tried to get them to do it auction style, but none of them knew enough about it to do anything, and I just really would have liked to have done it, but we didn't. So. All right. Well, without further ado, let's get into the rookie quarterbacks. Starting us off, we have actually, I don't know, some of the tiers. Tier maker here doesn't let me change the font. So in case you can't see that, we have elite, great, good, average, below average, and bad. But to start us off, we have Stetson Bennett.
Ooh, Stetson Bennett. Maybe we can throw him into below average. I don't want to go all the way bad because I think there's people you could even put further down. But Bennett, I mean, obviously he had a lot of production in college with Georgia. He's more experienced than most NFL quarterbacks given his age. But, he's actually in a decent spot there in I almost called him St. Louis in
Rams.
LA. Rams. Stafford getting older. We'll see what he still has. It seems like they think he's healthy again, but you never know. He might get a crack sooner than later. And I think with some of these later rookie quarterbacks, one of the things that you want to look for is, what do you have early? Like, are they ever going to get an opportunity to even step on the field, right? I think he has a path. It's maybe not the cleanest, but you could see it, right? And so I guess it's maybe the best thing I can say for him.
I agree. I think Stafford's health worries me, and I definitely think he gets a shot this year. That's pretty much the only reason I'm in on him. Like his college profile, there's nothing there that says he's even remotely good. He's probably just a backup. But on the other hand, he does seem to, maybe he's just one of those guys who finds a way to win. There's just those guys where they're not that good. They never do anything special, but somehow they win at every level. And maybe he's just one of those guys. But guess we'll find out. Next up, we have Sean Clifford.
Oh, man.
We can exactly start off hot, hey?
We can throw him in the bad category. I'm a Packers fan as well, and I don't know what that pick was. We needed a quarterback, I guess, just to fill out the depth chart, but can't imagine he's gonna overtake Love there or anything like that. So we'll keep him in the bad category.
And yet, Will Levis couldn't win the job away from him.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about him soon enough, I suppose. But
Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
Yeah, Thompson-Robinson, I liked him coming out. I guess we can – the problem for him is the opportunity piece, kind of like we were talking about with Bennett. I think it's going to be tough for Thompson-Robinson to get that opportunity with Watson ahead of him. I guess I'll put him in the below average camp. He's probably better prospect-wise than Bennett, but opportunity could be tough to come by.
Yeah, I agree. Athletically, I thought he was really impressive, but not the best landing spot, so probably below average. Max Duggan.
I'm gonna go with bad on that one. I think we, in terms of being a prospect, wasn't a great prospect. The landing spot also, he's not going to overtake Justin Herbert in Los Angeles with the Chargers. So we'll put him in the bad spot.
Bad prospect, bad talent, bad landing spot. But I don't think there's much hope for him. He's not someone like I'll take the shot and stash Stetson Bennett just for his opportunity on a taxi squad, but pretty sure Max Duggan's just done for.
They say his teammates love him, though. So if that counts for anything, you can move him up to the below average.
they tend to love the backup quarterback. That's how it goes. So.
They're unthreatened by him.
Yeah. Jake Haener.
Jake Haener is interesting. I would maybe put him in the average bucket. Average, below average. We can go average. We'll move up the ladder here. I think in terms of he's probably the best prospect we've talked about here so far in my mind. He put up some good numbers in college, and he goes to what I think is a pretty good spot for him. I think a subtly good spot in New Orleans. I know they just signed Carr, but I'm always skeptical when a guy is sort of given up on by his franchise.
Yeah.
And they move on to sort of the next spot. It works out so little of the time. Like the only example I can really think of is Kirk Cousins, and Washington was kind of like, reluctant to give up on him, but you just don't really see it very often where one team says, I'm done with you, and then he pans out for the next team. And so I think there could be a situation where Carr sort of underwhelms, maybe the team underwhelms, and Haener gets a shot at things sooner rather than later. I
could definitely see that. I don't mind the call there at all. He was above average athletic profile. He wasn't my favorite in the class, but he wasn't the worst. And average I think is fitting. Jaren Hall next up.
Yeah, so Hall, I'm going to go with probably bad on this one. Let's see, it was Minnesota, right? Just making sure I'm on the right team here.
I think so. Yeah, I believe so.
The fact I'm questioning the team and want to make sure I get that right.
I'll look it up. There's one or two where I can't remember, which, like you said, probably means who gives it. Yeah, it's Minnesota.
Yeah, I know he had some sort of fans that, maybe he's a sleeper. I think, who knows what's going to happen there next year. When Cousins' contract is up, does he come back? Does he go on elsewhere? A lot of people think he's going to go elsewhere. And so, does Hall get a shot to compete? Maybe. But if you want to stash him on your taxi squad, like you said, I can't say that's a bad thing to do. He might appreciate in value if he gets a shot to compete for a starting job, but that's about all I can say to him.
Now we start to get interesting. Hendon Hooker of the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, so Hooker, I struggle with Hooker. I'm kind of out on him, frankly. Like I think I have doubts about his talent and just him as a prospect coming from Tennessee and that sort of
just
system.
So you know, officially, everything else you say about him doesn't matter. You're going to be tweeted as "I struggle with hookers." just so you know, that's all I'm quoting out of that is you struggle with hookers. Just so you know.
Yeah. Well, you either love hookers or hate them, I guess. But
okay, never mind. I will be quote tweeting that as well. Thank you very much. How do I click this?
Yeah, that's
sorry. Go ahead. I
interrupt my rep up out there. No, but I think
hope you're not married.
So getting back to
to
Hendon here.
Yeah, well played. Well played.
Coming off injury, you sort of know he's not going to be, given an opportunity this year. And what I struggle with, I know Lions can get out of Goff's contract next year, but they seem to really like him there. And I have my doubts that they move off him, and especially not really knowing, like, if we assume that they don't really get to see what Hendon Hooker is able to do, do they really want to move off Goff for a complete unknown if they think their team is competitive? And so, given his age, given his injury history, given that the Lions kind of like Goff, I didn't love the landing spot really, and so I would put him probably average along with Haener.
He's such a tough one to estimate, really.
Yeah, I just didn't really see him separate himself in terms of like a prospect from Haener or in terms of opportunity, really. And so I think there were landing spots where, I could have been more in on him. Like, honestly, like Minnesota, like if we were just talking about Hall, if he would have gone to Minnesota, like I could definitely see where he'd have that opportunity next year, and maybe that's a good stash. But, it's just tough for me to see with the Lions, honestly.
Yeah. Like I said, I like the talent, but The injury kind of worries me. He's going to have to sit a year. He could be a long-term project, but I'm not investing any significant capital in him. Next up, we have Will Levis.
Yeah, so Levis, I mean, I don't know. It's really easy to hate on Levis. I think people love to do that. I put him in the good category, probably. I get the concerns, like, mistake prone, bad decision making is on tape. Didn't really put up numbers, honestly, in college. I know we have, all the tools, as people like to say, in the arm talent. But, one thing that people forget, and I think is underrated about Levis, is his legs. And I think that wasn't really on display last year because he had, his toe injury and was playing through that. And so I think his mobility, which I think is a bigger part of his game than people recall, wasn't really able to be demonstrated last year. And I think that hurt him just in terms of what he was able to do. His 2021, I look back at his stats. He had 9 touchdowns on the ground, 376 yards on the ground. And so that definitely can be a piece of his game. And I think he could sort of carry that forward to the NFL a bit. And so for fantasy purposes, obviously we look for those running quarterbacks. I think that's a little bit underrated in his game. And so I'd put him in the good category. And I think he's got a clear path, maybe not this year, maybe towards the back half of the year, depending on how Tennessee's doing. But, next year it seems like it would be – he'll definitely get a crack to compete for that starting job. And so, I don't mind Levis. I think sort of, there's uncertainty with these guys, and I think maybe the hate's gone too far. People have already written him off as 100% bust, and I don't think I'm there quite yet.
Next up, we have Tanner McKee.
Yeah, Tanner McKee, I think we can put him in the bad category as well.
Well, he's never going to play.
That's correct. So, I honestly, for time purposes, we can probably spend more time with somebody else.
Yeah, there's not much to say. He's behind Jalen Hurts, and he wasn't that impressive to begin with. So we can just move on to Clayton Tune, who may play this year.
Yeah, I actually like Tune. I think, I would put him in the average bucket as well. More so for the opportunity than anything.
Yeah, I think he plays this year with Kyler's injury.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll have every opportunity to. Obviously he's kind of competing with Colt McCoy there to kick off the year. Arizona seems to be embracing the tank too, and so even if they think McCoy might be a better quarterback, on day one, give them a better chance to win, that might be even more reason that they put Clayton Tune out there. See what they have there, and like it, even for backup purposes, right? Like, do they have a backup quarterback in Clayton Tune? And who knows? Again, what you want to see, especially with these late round quarterback guys, is do they get the opportunity to show what they are, and maybe increase in value. And so I think Tune has a good opportunity to do that. He had some pretty good numbers in college, a decent enough profile to take a late flyer on him.
Next, we have Aiden O'Connell, who I swear is Farva from Super Troopers, but
yes, that is. I haven't heard that before, but that is a spot on comp there. Hopefully, his game is a little bit better than Farva's Super Trooping.
I don't think it's much better.
No, unfortunately, probably not. He's another. Obviously, Jimmy G's gonna get the first crack if he's on the roster.
Yeah,
I think what's really interesting is the Jimmy G foot news and that clause that was added to his contract to be able to waive him for basically nothing. I don't know. I don't think anybody thinks that's going to happen, but there's a chance. And if it happens, I guess there's a chance again that O'Connell could start or compete to start or get some starts this year at some point. I'd still put him probably below average. He's only not in the bad category just because I guess he could conceivably get on the field this year.
But. Next up, we have Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, so I would put Richardson in the elite bucket. I guess spoilers, he's probably going to be the only one there for me here. He's the most athletic quarterback ever, as proven by his RAS score. I think he's safer than a lot of people are giving him credit for too. Like, I think the only real knock on him is, people will say he's raw, but I think they just sort of throw that around a bit. I think there's a lot of things in his game that make him safer than people give him credit for. Like, number one is his escapability, right? Like, he took so few sacks. And that's not just an athleticism stat, right? Like, Justin Fields takes all kinds of sacks, and he's as athletic as they come, aside from Richardson. But he just doesn't take sacks. He's smart with the ball. And that, when you don't take sacks, your offense puts up more points. Like, that's I forget who put a study on that out, but the expected points when you don't take a sack is so much higher than when you do. Like, when you take a sack, it just kills a drive. And so if you're not doing that and you have the legs and the running sort of floor as well, I think even from an NFL perspective, I think Richardson's safer than people are giving him credit for. And sorry, you were going to say something?
No.
I was just going to say, obviously the legs for fantasy purposes, like, as long as Richardson is on the field, like, he's going to be incredible. Like, I would say if he starts on day one, he's a top 12 quarterback. And then I think his arm, and like his processing ability is underrated as well. Like, I think he sees the field, people I trust kind of look at what he's done and say, hey, he's actually processing. He's going through his reads. He's getting to his third read on these plays. It's more of just an experience thing for him. Like, he just hasn't started many games. And so as he does that more, everybody says it, the sky's the limit. He's got to be the top quarterback in this class just based on where he can go. So.
All righty. Finishing. Oh, we have two more actually. CJ Stroud up next. I suspect both of these next two are going to be in the same tier.
Yeah, that's fair to say. If you want to throw them both in there, they'll be in the, was it good?
Great or good?
Great, the great tier. Yes,
Okay,
we can put them above Levis. That's fair enough. Yeah. So let's start with
Stroud or Young?
Stroud. I guess Stroud's the first one that was there. But Stroud, I like him. He, obviously had great production in college. One of the things that I'm hesitant about with him is all he ever dealt with in college was like the best of the best receivers you could imagine. Like, Garrett Wilson, Olave, Smith and Jigba, Marvin Harrison, Igbuka. Like, that's like a phenomenal NFL starting wide receiver group. He's now moving to Houston, where he gets, his receiver group. I wouldn't say it's like bottom barrel, but it's just a bunch of guys, and we'll see who.
Pretty close.
Yeah. Hopefully that competition brings somebody out, right? So we'll see how he does with, not the elite separators and things like that in his receiver room. Obviously he's a great thrower of the football. The S2 cognition test was an interesting thing. I don't want to put too much stock in it, but it was definitely a red flag that I wanted to at least think about. It sounds like from what I researched, it's more of like a weeder out than a definitive. Like if you score well, like you're going to be great. And so, I don't know. It's in the back of my head. So I probably have Bryce Young a little bit ahead of him because of some of those different factors. But he's good, and he's definitely worth a shot, and he'll start for probably the next 3 years. So
transitioning into that last guy, Bryce Young, you have him in the elite good tier as well. What do you think about it? Great tier, great. I said elite, then good, and it's great. I'll get it right.
Yeah, I mean, Bryce Young, he's just sort of the most polished, right? He had some great years at Bama. Obviously, the biggest concern is height. I'm not that concerned about that. He's still produced in college despite being much smaller than everybody else. He's evidenced that he can throw the ball over the middle of the field and things like that. And so I'm not that concerned about his height. I'm not that concerned about anything else. I think there's maybe a ceiling concern just because he doesn't really run that much. That's not a huge part of his game. But I think he's as safe as they come in terms of making sure that you don't get a bust player. So,
as you can see, it was not a particularly strong or deep draft class for the quarterbacks. Definitely not. We have 4 here who could be decent, and then a bunch of guys who are probably career backups or practice squad players. All right, Andrew. Well, thank you for joining me. You want to take a second to tell everyone again where they can find you?
Yeah, appreciate you having me. Again, at Auction Andrew FF on Twitter. I'll be putting out all my content there. But it's also going to be on Yards Per Fantasy, so you can check me out there. Again, later this summer, it's going to be my Auction Roadmap 2.0, second year doing it. It's kind of a comprehensive guide of how to prepare for an auction, how to strategy within it, before it. Pretty much holistic view of what auction drafting is. So
that's on Yards Per?
Yep, Yards Per Fantasy. Other guys doing great work there too. So go check it out.
I'm going to have to check that one out because I'm one way or another, I'm going to get myself into an auction league this year.
Yeah,
it kills me. It's the one thing I haven't really got to do. I've done it in hockey, but I've never gotten into one in football, and I'm going to find a way this year. So
yeah, well, let me know, and happy to offer up some help.
Thank you very much. Well, this has been my tiers on the rookie quarterback situation with Andrew Debbink. Thank you, Andrew, for joining me. Once again, I'm Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist. This has been the Mad Science Lab podcast. Thank you, everyone, for watching.